Today we are here with Chad Tucker from Fox 8 and his wife Meredith. Thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Yeah,
thanks for having us.
You guys have a lot going on, you know, being a journalist. You started your own business, right, Meredith?
Yes. It's keeping us so busy, But
and then the 3 children.
Yes, 3 children, 10, 8
and 4. She looks at me.
I'm like, I can't remember. Like, how old are they? I was there for it.
I was there too.
Yeah. But yes, very busy. Yeah, and it's super exciting
you guys
times.
Have had a hard journey. I've read a lot, about Roe Roe, right? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, her
Can
middle
you tell us a
child.
little bit about her story and how it led to your foundation?
Yeah, so our middle child, her name is Pearl Monroe, but we affectionately call her Roe Roe, though she's now in 3rd grade, and sometimes she likes to be preferred to be called Pearl Monroe. So she's getting to that age. She's like, I don't know if I want that little kid name anymore. But no, she was about this time 5 years ago in 2019. Is that right? Am I doing the math right?
Mm-hmm, yes, yep.
She just started complaining of a lot of aches and pains. She would come and wake us up in the middle of the night and say my cheeks hurt, and we really knew on Halloween because we went to one house and she said I want to go home, and so you just knew, And we have been going back and forth to the pediatrician because mother's gut is always.
It's always right.
Yeah,
is always
things
right.
Just were not
always
adding
right.
up.
I don't care what anybody says. A mother's gut is always right, and she just knew there was something wrong. And we go and they say, "Oh, she's probably got an infection," or something this or that.
Yeah, and we did X-rays, and there was no breaks or fractures, and which was great. But then it's like, oh, there's still something not right, and personality was changing. Like, just
Very clingy. Want to be held a lot.
Clingy, crying. So the last straw was we had blood drawn, and that's when they told us that her white blood cell count was through the roof. And that's when they immediately sent us over to Brenner, and that's everything got kick-started right then.
Yeah, that one day. I mean, she did more blood work that morning, and that afternoon they called. My wife was pregnant at 23 weeks, 24 weeks.
About 20 weeks, yeah.
With her
So I was
son.
pregnant.
And so the doctors always said, I never tell people this over the phone, but I feel like I should tell you so you can go home and tell your wife, and then you'll come back over here because she was pregnant at the time and didn't want to upset her that way. So he told me over the phone that I'm sorry that your daughter has leukemia. And I was sitting at my desk at work. It was 10 minutes before the newscast, and I had to walk down the hall to my boss and said, I've got to go. And they had to find somebody else. I had to leave. My daughter has just been diagnosed with cancer. And so I drove home, and I remember it because it was the longest drive home. It's usually 20 minutes from the station to my house, and it felt like forever. But in that drive home, I just remember this enormous amount of peace that came over me and said, she's going to be just fine. She's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. But I walked in, and I did not tell her I was coming, but I did think about the whole ride home, like, how am I going to tell my wife that our daughter has cancer? And I walked in, and she knew something was wrong because I was supposed to be going on the air, and here I come in the back door.
Yeah, I was sitting at home. I was supposed to be working, and then I ended up staying home because we'd been back and forth to the doctors, and I was pregnant, and I was just like, I just need a day. And then not knowing this was the news that we were going to be getting. And so, of course, he came in and told me, and we just fell apart. And then we had to immediately get ourselves together, go straight to the hospital, and started everything.
Yeah. The very next day, they put a port in and started chemo, started bone marrow draws, all that, within 24 hours.
So,
But it was very odd because here I was telling her that our daughter was sick, and she was playing on the floor.
yeah.
It was just like
She was crawling though. She was trying to go around the pain. She wasn't screaming, crying, but she was waking up at night and crawling and trying to make it less painful by crawling.
Yeah.
And she was three and a half.
Yeah, it was a couple of days before that. It was on her birthday.
Yeah.
That's when we had the last straw, going back and forth to the pediatrician, and we just demanded blood work because she stopped walking. She just started crawling everywhere. So, but they got in there and they got started, and they told us it's going to be a very long journey. But she had ALL leukemia, which is the most common and the most
She had best case scenario.
best case scenario.
Yeah.
Highly curable.
Yeah.
93%. They've come a long way with that one cancer. And
And it was, great hearing the news that it was, highly curable, but it was the path of getting there. 2 years, 2 months,
858 days.
58 days of getting there, knowing I have a third child on the way and another one at home that was 5 at the time.
Yeah.
And then little did we know COVID was around the corner.
Yeah.
So it was one thing on top of another.
It was, 2020 was the hardest time of my entire life because, you have a daughter running around on chemo steroids, which
Raging.
raging steroids. You always hear the Roy rage. It's real. And I mean, and it's a 3-year-old and can't explain to you how she feels. So she just cries 24/7 and eats 24/7. And just, I mean, it's just probably the worst thing you'd ever see a child go through.
Yeah, there was lots of highs and lows with the steroids and the chemo, but we also had to have some laughs. Sometimes it's either you cry or you laugh. So the steroids cause them to crave a lot of food and all that. So I was pregnant, and we joked that it's like we were both pregnant, and her belly got so big, and mine was big, and we were both crazy. And
She was craving pickles and Doritos.
yeah.
And I was like,
I crave that all the time.
Right,
A lot
exactly.
of Stouffer spaghetti,
Yeah.
spicy
Eggs
Doritos.
at 3 or 4 in the morning.
We had to eventually have a friend take our dog because there was food everywhere. Dogs getting into all the food. It was crazy.
Yeah, our vet, who's a good friend of ours, he took the dog for a while because there's food everywhere. It was in our bed. It was because you constantly were feeding her, and it was the steroids that were just making her hungry all the time. And they said it was completely normal. Let her eat whatever she wants, But it got really crazy when we got close to COVID kicked in, and so then we're having to homeschool our kindergartner. She was due any day, and then they said, "We want you to do the news from home." So they
You can only imagine.
Yeah, so we didn't, there was
Were
a
you
lot
doing
of,
comedy hour? Or, I mean, I can only imagine what was going on in the background or through the doors or whatever
Oh.
at all times.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was, and they brought all the equipment and they sit on the front door and they said, "We'll walk you through on how to set it up," because there was so much unknown in the beginning. So here I am
It's
setting it up,
crazy.
and I remember the very first day I got everything set up, and I had I dialed in, and we're all ready and everything. And Meredith loaded up the kids in a car. She goes, "I'll drive around for the hour," because I do the 4:00 news. And she got back and she says, "I don't care. I'm never doing that again."
Because we couldn't even get out and go anywhere. I mean, it was nothing we could
Drive
do.
around the neighborhood for an hour. It's just like, I'm not doing that again. They can just hear the kids. I don't. And if,
Oh,
and
it got so lax after that.
Yeah.
I was cooking while he was on the news, and kids were bebopping in and out of the background and popping up and asking him for orange juice. And this, I would be upstairs, and they're like, "Hey, Daddy, orange juice."
live on the news, but people ended up loving it.
I was going to say, it's probably
Yeah,
some of
I
the highest
bet.
rated stuff you had.
Amazon, perfect timing. 4:00 drop off for deliveries.
The dog always
UPS,
barks when
dog
Amazon-
barking.
So, and I would just apologize. I would say, "I'm sorry, the Amazon man's here," and I just continue on. And it just became the norm.
Yeah.
But it was interesting in that when it came time for our son to be born, I'll never forget that because it was November the 31st.
No.
Yes. I mean, March 31st.
Yeah.
March 31st, 2020. And I'm sitting there live on the news, and our neighbor or a friend of ours came and brought food and left it on the door and was ringing the doorbell during the newscast. We told him not, I'm on the news. My daughter, she comes and she's like, "I want some orange juice, Daddy," while I'm on the news. And at the same time, she's texting me from upstairs saying, "I think my water just broke." And I'm just sitting there. I'm just sitting there trying to read what's on the little screen. Stay focused. Stay focused.
It probably humanized a lot of things for a lot of people at that time. It was probably the saving grace. People going, they're stuck in their houses. They
Yeah.
feel all the,
Everybody was feeling the same pain. Everybody was
right?
feeling the same
They're
pain.
like, we relate to this, madness stuck in our houses. So
That's
Yeah.
right.
yeah, who knows? Maybe happy accident a little bit on that. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's
So then I end up having our son April 1st,
The very next day.
2020.
We-
I was due
On
April
April Fool's
11th,
Day.
and I'm just like, can you either just stay in or like,
I
have him on the
joked, yeah. I told the nurse.
31st or later on the 2nd.
I said,
No.
can you hold him just for until past April Fool's? She's like, she just like looked at me like, get out of here. So,
Yeah,
Anyway.
I was
No,
miserable.
you hold it.
But yeah, he came that morning on April Fool's Day, and so it was. But he was a bright spot in
Yeah.
all of that because it gave us something else to focus on. It got our minds. Of course, we had a child going around with cancer and fighting that, and then a 5-year-old that we're trying to homeschool because schools were shut down, and also it was very difficult in the sense that nobody could come help us. There's nobody could, not even family could. Nobody. We were just really on our own. And the hospitals were shut down real tight. Like our daughter really liked for both of us to go when she got treatments. Well, we couldn't do that anymore. So it was only one of us could go.
Right.
And she had to nurse, so I had to take. And it was a very difficult time, and it went on for a very long time.
Yeah, it was also hard emotionally knowing that I had a newborn, this like fresh baby, and then I have a sick child who's fighting for her life, and then one that's trying, we're trying to have normalcy.
Yeah.
And then I would assume all at a time when they're telling you you've got to be hyper vigilant about COVID with a
Yeah.
child going through the treatment
Yeah.
process.
The one great thing though about COVID, a blessing in disguise, was that it kept germs at bay. It was just hard not having people coming in and helping.
Yeah.
Otherwise, she would have been admitted into the hospital way more like in a normal scenario.
Kids who go through treatment, if they get a common cold and they run a fever, they have to go to the hospital, stay until the fever breaks and comes back down with antibiotics.
Yeah.
So she never had any of that, except when things started relaxing again and opening back up, she started picking up little
The germs.
common colds, and it would give her a fever, and she would have to go.
Yeah.
But during the really intense first year of treatments, that was one of the blessings in disguise from everybody being at home.
So when did she get to ring the bell?
So finally, on her 6th birthday,
Yeah.
her 6th
2021.
I know it's all starting to run together now. 2021,
Yeah.
on her 6th birthday, 858 days later,
Yeah.
she rang the bell.
So what was that day like?
It was amazing. So her school, they came together and they all just cheered her on as she left the school. But not only her, but her sister as well, who was also just supported her and everything. So both girls walked together down the sidewalk, and all the kids at the school had posters and bells, and
They were all ringing bells.
Yeah, the ringing bells, and that's coming out of school. And then we left and went to the hospital, and then we did a big bell ringing celebration there in the clinic with their doctors and their whole medical team, and it was incredible.
Yeah.
It was incredible. It just felt like, and in that moment, it just felt like this release of freedom. Also, nerve-wracking because you're no longer on the medication that kept the cancer at bay, but also just having faith that going to move forward and we're going to be good.
Yeah. It was that, did it work? Because now she's not on it. And now we're going to see, is she going to relapse? And, there's a chance of that. And all these things play in your mind, but you just have to find a place where you kind of just, it's faith, and you just kind of let it go and just, move forward and pray that, it keeps it at bay. And
Yeah. Every year past her last chemo treatment, the better, the less chance for relapse. And so we're in year.
we're about to
3?
start her 3rd year, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and every year she goes in for blood work. So the first year was every month, second year every 2 months, and they're 3 months. And then when she gets to that 5th year, she only has to go in once. And then after that, it's once a year until she feels comfortable. Some kids still come when they come as adults.
In year 5, she's considered cured.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So this whole experience, you started a foundation based on this, right?
Yeah, that came about because we had our community. I'm from a little town outside of Winston called King, and it's not really little anymore. It's
You
become like a
mispronounced
suburb.
that. I believe it's Kang.
Kang, that's right. I've got a shirt that says Kang on it. But and a lot of people from home, really rallied around us, and that was, and then the school. I mean, to see all the kids lined up, besides seeing the birth of your children, that's probably and our wedding day, is probably one of the most memorable moments of my entire life, is looking out and seeing a sidewalk full of children
Yeah, it was powerful.
ringing bells and cheering your daughter on as she walks to get in a car to go ring the bell, ending her 2-year fight with cancer.
Yeah.
But just to have that community is what is so needed for so many families, because I don't know how people do it without it. I really don't. And when you go through this, you get to know a lot of families in the clinic. And a lot of families don't have that. They don't have that community support for whatever reason. Either they're new to the area and their child got diagnosed, or they're not plugged in yet to a community, or something of that nature. And so we just decided, well, let's help be a community for some of those families. And so we work really closely with the social workers, and they'll call us and say, hey, this family doesn't have a lot of support. They don't have a lot of people, surrounding them. So we try to do things, whether it's financially. We hold, we call them hero nights. We'll find out what the kids' favorite restaurant is, and we'll call the restaurant. And then what we'll do, we'll try and get their school to come out. And I'll come out to that night and just show support for them and raise some money for them as well. And we get in there sometimes with some of the families and just really be honest with them about what you're about to go through. It's going to be probably the worst years of your time and months of your life.
Sure.
And just give them the things that we learned from it, just passing it on to them. One of the things I always tell the dads is, because I did it in the beginning, people want to come and help you. And I told people no a lot in the beginning. I don't know, being a dad, being the quote caregiver, being this proud, I don't know. I told no to a lot of people. And then somebody pulled me aside and just shook me and said, you're denying people of a blessing. People want to love on you different ways. They may want to send you a card, bring you a meal, write you a check, babysit your other kids. Let them do it. Let them do it. And so a lot of times I'll pull the dads aside and I'll tell them that. I was like, you're going to get a lot of people who want to help you. Don't tell them no. Let them do it. Let them do it, because you may not see it now. You may think, oh, we've got this, but you've got like 2 years, 3
You're gonna
years
need
ahead
it,
of you.
every bit of it.
You're going to get worn down. You're going to need the help. So, yeah. So that's the kind of thing we do, is just try to be there for other families that don't have that support.
And early on, we just knew from the beginning, like we wanted to open up our journey to others, because why keep it to ourselves when we can help educate other families and the families that are unfortunately going to go through it behind us. So we just wanted to help, navigate and pave a way like the families have before us, and educate, because, the more that these families can know, and they have resources, and know where to go and how to get help, and just in all different kinds of ways. And we just wanted to be open and share that and help people learn, because childhood cancer, it needs a lot more awareness for sure.
Yeah.
It's,
we were shocked when we were going through it about how little funding it goes to childhood cancer. Out of the entire federal budget, only 4% is allocated to childhood cancer research. The rest goes to all the other cancers. And it's just eye-opening, like, why is this? Oh, now I know why there's St. Jude's. Now I know why there's all these foundations like St. Baldrick and all this, because childhood cancer research is not getting any funding anywhere else. So there's all these foundations raising money for research, because that's the only way they're going to get it. And, you'll ask the doctors, like, why is there so little research for childhood cancer? And they'll just be blunt with you. They'll say, well, if the kids could vote,
Jeez.
If the kids could vote. And some will even say, well, pharmaceuticals can make money off of kids, but they can't really. There's just not the margins there for them. So they don't put a lot of money into research for medications. So,
and it's been how many years since the medications, new medications have been
they've only
made?
had like 3 or 4 new medications in the last 20 years. And what they've really been successful with is, like for ALL leukemia, is just finding, because what they used to do was they would, knock it out in the very first month, and they consider you to be technically in remission, and then send you up. But they found out kids were relapsing a lot. So then they found out different plans of how, staggering it in different ways, the same medications, but the end result was much better. So
Just different care plans using
Yeah.
the same medications that they have available.
it's like vincristine
Yeah.
that our daughter was on. It's been around since the 50s.
Yeah.
And, and there's some cancers like DIPG. It's, they just send the kids home and say, go love your kids.
You have 6 months.
You have
That's it.
6 months. That's it. That's the one Neil Armstrong's daughter died from. And they still to this day don't have a cure for that. It's, and we've got to know families that are going through that. It's just, that's the heartbreaking thing is we've been to a lot of children's funerals. And,
Hardest thing ever.
yeah. And you do go through the survivor guilt, because we've been to children's funerals that had the exact same thing our daughter had. Their body just didn't take to the medication like ours daughters did. It's, but those people, those kids are the reasons why we continue to tell our story. Being on the local news, in the beginning, we said, are we going to tell people that our daughter has cancer, or are we just going to keep it to ourselves? And then we kind of just got to the point where, well, people are going to find out anyway.
Yeah. And then my thing was, how could we not? Like, we've learned so much. Like, I immediately wanted to let people know, to educate. And,
Yeah.
if your child, if you're, the mother's gut feeling and all of that, like, your intuition, like, you just need to go.
And when you talk to other moms, they'll tell you the same thing. They'll say, yeah, I went back and forth to the pediatrician multiple times before they finally believed me. And it's just, you always go with your gut. Mamas know.
Yeah.
Daddies do, but mamas know. But you learn a lot. And you learn a lot about life. You learn a lot about living. And we don't sweat the small stuff anymore. Our house flooded in March. And it's been very difficult, but it's like, we've been through worse. We're still not in our house.
It's still hard. It's not easy,
It's
but
not easy, but it does put everything into perspective.
I love the Dollywood post, how your daughter had the sign. Share about
Yeah.
that. That was so sweet.
yeah, that was so awesome.
Yeah, so when going through childhood cancer, there's a lot of things that you could do to really help boost your kids. And one of the things that our daughter loves is music. And so,
Loves to sing and dance.
sing and dance. And it would get her mind off it. And her sister would, sometimes know when she's having a hard day and turn on the music. And, and Dolly was one of the songs. And Dolly has an entire album people don't realize it's geared towards kids with cancer. One is called Chemo Hero. One is You're a Brave Little Soldier. So anyway, we went to Dollywood for opening weekend. We made a sign, and she just said, your music helped me beat cancer. And
They had their signs ready, both the girls, and
we always try to include
Yeah.
her older sister. And
Oh,
she
yeah,
had her
always.
sign, too. It was like, I'm the best big sister. 'Cause she really is. Helping your sister go through cancer. It does give you a huge title.
Yeah.
And so she just stood up there, and we knew she was coming back to the resort, and just stood up there, and one of the guys said, she's going to stop, just so you know. And she
it was
did.
the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dolly was. I don't know. I mean, she was just endearing, just like you would think. I mean, like you see on TV, she was in person, and
She stopped. She said, are you all better now? And she said, yes. And then she said, well, come over here and get a hug. And then I always make sure the older sister's not left out. And so I pushed the older sister on. I was like, go big sister, go big sister. So she went out there too. And
Yeah.
Dolly loved their dresses and snapped a pic and said she was so happy for her. And it really meant a lot because to them, it's interesting to our kids, she's the book lady who also, they later learned.
Imagination library.
Yes, she was the book lady until one night we was watching the CMA Awards. She goes, there's the book lady. She's singing. And I was like, yeah, she's a singer too. You should, when you get older, I'll let you watch some of her movies. She's in the movies? Yeah. So it's interesting how different generations see her. But
Yeah.
That was a fun moment.
So you just started a business. Can you tell us? Is it in Winston or King?
So I have a hair salon in Winston, and let me just say I'm born and raised from Winston. Still live in Winston. I love being here. Watching the whole city just flourish is so awesome. So I ended up opening. It's almost open. We're going through inspections. Beauty and Wellness Suites, in King. So it'll be estheticians and hairstylists, massage therapists, kind of like a one-stop shop. Like they're all individual businesses, you know, so that, you know, everyone come in for self-care and relax and just create that spa, med spa type environment where people can come and have their services done. So super excited. I'm a hairstylist of 20 years, I think. Like, how did we get there? But so it went fast.
That's how we met. I needed a haircut.
That's how that happened. He's not lying. Yeah. But I will say, being on this side of the journey of cancer, like, it's never over, but it has definitely been rewarding to be able to, like, jump into a different part of my industry. I did have to stop working for 2 years during all of that, and eventually we got to a better place. COVID was lightening up and kind of letting up, and it just felt so good for me to get back into a different outlet and being creative and being with some people again and being careful and all of that. And then I just got the opportunity fell into my lap for me to take over a business, a hair salon in Winston, and it is flourishing now, and I absolutely love it. I love it so much. And then I had the opportunity to open a new business in King. So I don't know. I'm just so excited. And I could not do it without the support of my husband and my family that helps with kids. And
I did not pay her to say that.
so, anyways,
Well, you
things
should.
are good.
Well,
It's a lot. It's a balancing act, but I love it.
and it's been awesome to see her to do that. I mean, and I remember when she bought the salon in Winston, and I said, "Well, what are you going to call it?" And she said, "Dash and Co." Dash for the Dash in Winston-Salem, and it's been great. And so then when she decided to open up a salon suite, that just happened to happen in my hometown, which I was very proud of. The sense that you know, going back to my hometown and kind of helping the economy there, and I said, "Can I help with the name on this one?" And she was throwing out some names, and I said, "How about Parry and Pearl after our children, after our girls?"
I was like, done. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So, and it's just 25 minutes from here, so not far at all.
Well, especially
Jump
if you
on
live on the
52
north side of
north.
Winston. That's pretty
Exactly. Yeah.
close.
I feel like we're there every day. So yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, so we're excited. That one is opening very soon. So yeah, it's set up. It's different than the salon in Winston, but
The salon is.
the salon in Winston is just all
Traditional.
hairstylist. Yeah, traditional salon, and then like I said, in King at Parry and Pearl, it's a mix of all beauty and wellness. So
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very, very cool.
It's been a great distraction to
Yeah.
you know, the weight of life, and I'm very proud of her.
yep.
I just like the response to all of it. I mean, not to say that, you know, people don't always look on the bright side or whatever, but it's everything that you guys have said from the beginning has been about the positive way in which things could be either spun or pursued or whatever afterwards, from the foundation to jumping back into something creative and doing something that's purposeful and
Yeah.
going down that avenue. And then coming on here and talking all about it. It's great.
Without tearing up.
Yeah.
Well, you got me. I was tearing
I know,
up.
I was too.
I mean,
Oh, there has been many tears over the years, a lot of tears, and I feel like we're finally to a place where we can like talk about it. But it's like therapy. It's it feels really good.
This is free
to
therapy.
talk
Thank you
about
all.
it.
I appreciate it.
I mean, it's taken a while to get to this point for sure.
Yeah. It's
And it's not ever like I don't ever want to like not talk about it. Like I'm always willing to like talk to someone, like
It's-
open book.
my
like,
wife and I
what
both
do you
went
wanna know?
through cancer.
Did
and
you really?
We did. And so the same thing about, do you talk about it or not? It became very quick. You should absolutely talk about
Yeah.
it for more reasons than you can count, but just the awareness and getting people to be thinking about it. She had breast cancer, had testicular cancer, and I had it much later in life, which it's a young man's disease, and it's very, very uncommon. To your point about, you know, low funding or whatever. Not that my form of cancer should have tons of funding necessarily, but it's something that most people don't know anything about because it's an uncommon form of cancer, and it's under the age of 35, almost 99 point something % of it, and I was 38.
Wow.
So, you know, when I was talking to
Yeah.
the doctor, he kind of said the same thing. It's like, I mean, that's not what it is. And then a few months later, I'm going,
There's something there.
I called my cousin who had it, and I explained
Yeah.
symptoms. He's like, "Get thee to a urologist now."
Right.
And so when we had scans and so forth, and they're like, "Yeah." So anyway, talking about these things, I think it normalizes it. Also, it puts the awareness, and it's essential. So I love that you guys are doing that, and then of course taking it further with the foundation.
Yeah,
is-
and then
is a beautiful
we
thing.
didn't mention the scholarship. I don't think.
Yeah, we started a scholarship for the next generation of healthcare workers, especially nurses. We named it after our beloved nurse at Brenner, Nancy Smith, who just retired after almost 50 years, 47 years of helping kids fight cancer. She helped start the clinic at Brenner, and so and she's from my home. We both actually went to the same high school, and so at her high school and the other high schools in Stokes County, where we're both from, we have scholarships at every high school, nursing, and they tend to go to kids who are looking to pursue a career in pediatric oncology, but it's not necessarily that. I mean, if you're any kind of medical field, so we've enjoyed providing with the scholarship. But back to your point too is, I always feel like too, like when you tell your story, you don't know when your story is going to be the next family's playbook.
Yeah.
Right.
And people need to hear that. They need to hear that because when our daughter was diagnosed, I'll never forget, there was a nurse who came down and she was very young, and she walked in and she introduced herself, and she said, "I just want to let you know that when I was a little girl, I had the very same cancer your daughter has. And now I'm an adult nurse, and I feed off when people come up to us and say, I'm 45 years old, I have a family, and I beat it as well." And people need to hear that.
Yeah.
They need to hear that.
It gives them hope.
Gives them hope.
Yeah. Yeah, and it can be very personal, these kinds of things that people don't want to share. And I can understand their reservation, but the more people do,
Yeah.
the more access they have, the more normalized it becomes, and prevention, early detection, all of that is, as we know, is so key. So
Yeah.
having people have it in their
Yeah.
common conversation is a big deal.
Yeah.
Even just talking with other families going with it as, going through it as well. And just, talking about their story, our story. And it's kind of like a me too, Oh, I felt that way too. Oh, that happened to us too. Or how did you handle that? And, that's a lot of, that community is a tight-knit community.
We're getting ready to start a group with other families at Brenner, be a part of that, and just sharing the stories of what you're going through. One of the things that's been very common is the people who disappear. People who disappear when you're going through it. You have a group of people who you're not really close to, and they all of a sudden show up and they walk beside you the whole time. And then you have people you're very close to, and then all of a sudden they just disappear. And I remember people saying, this will happen to you. And I'm like, oh, that's not going to happen. And it did. And it comes down to people don't know what to say. They don't know what to do. So they choose to do nothing. So
Not so much a lack of love as it is a lack of understanding or knowing what to do. And
but that's a very, very common thing with other families. I was like, I was just talking to a mom the other day, and she said, my best friend, my maid of honor in my wedding, stopped calling me when my son was diagnosed. And I've never heard from her since. And it's just, if there's one thing I always tell people when they have a friend who's had a kid with cancer, I'm like, make sure you call them. Make sure you text them. It's just the simplest thing. Just a text, I'm thinking about you today. It means the world, because that day could be a very difficult day.
Yeah.
And just knowing someone out there is thinking about you, that's all you need.
Also the middle, the beginning is the big shock, and then you get this flood. And
Yeah,
I always say
everybody
too,
comes.
for us for me in the very beginning, it felt like I was grieving, like I had lost, like there's a line in the sand. I feel like a part of me had died. That's what it felt like. And then you get this shock and this rush of people and messages and everything, and then it all just simmers down, and it's like crickets. And then that's when it's really messy.
The middle is messy.
When you're going through all the hard stuff and you don't have the support. And of course, we had COVID pandemic.
It got very hard.
honestly, I don't know how you guys. I mean, I was just sitting here keeping my mouth shut, going, "I can't even imagine having all of that," because I was recalling our experiences, especially in my wife's journey with her chemo and so forth, and how people would be constantly rallying and friends would be, on the front porch of the casserole or whatever and just knocking. I can't imagine being in a situation where nobody could come in your house in the midst of all of that. There's nobody that can really can be there.
And it was hard because at that time, like my sister, well, she's a nurse still, or she still is a nurse, and so my parents would be helping her with her kids, but she was exposed, to COVID constantly at the hospital. So then it was hard for them to come help us, and it's this constant of like, who are you in contact with? It's the whole, tracking who everyone was around, and it was just so
So
hard.
just everybody stayed away. Yeah.
And then what was it like waiting like 10 days? It's all a blur
Yeah.
now, but
Yeah.
all of that kind of stuff. But I don't know. We made it through. We kept our faith. I mean, cried a lot.
When they put the kids down at night, I remember that's when the tears would go.
Yeah.
Because
It's
when you were finally still, and just the heaviness of the entire day, just finally, that's when.
yeah, during the day and all in the hospital visits, you're survival mode.
Yeah.
And then at night when everything settles, it's just like, is this really happening? Yeah, it is.
Yeah. But
You just have to keep going. You have no other choice. I mean,
I know people always say, I don't know how you do it. You're so strong. And my wife's always responds, well, nobody
what
gave me a
else am I gonna
choice.
do? Like, you just got to keep going.
You keep going. But you literally take one day. There were some days we would take 1 hour at a time. Like, okay, well, just for this next hour, let's just do this, and just that's how you got through it. You just take sometimes 1 hour at a time.
Kids are resilient, though.
They
They're
really
very
are.
resilient.
They really are. And yeah, and you do grieve. You grieve a lot of loss of, like I think in some sense grieve the loss of the childhood that was taken from them, because it wasn't just taken from our daughter, these 2 years of her childhood, but it was also taken from her siblings, and
And we have a very soft spot for the siblings too, because they sometimes seem to get pushed in the background, and you
Not
try
intentionally,
everything
but-
not to, but it's just hard. And then that's all they hear is cancer, 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 cancer. It's all they hear. But I always explain, now it's just part of our tapestry of our life. It's just woven in. It's part of what we do and advocate for these kids and families. And
yeah, we always look for the siblings and make sure they're being loved on and felt special, and because we know, and they stand in the shadows cheering on their siblings, and it's hard. It's very hard, and but we had ours in counseling during the just to make sure she wasn't keeping anything inside.
trying to stay ahead, and just felt like it was needed, just to make sure we're on the right track and we're talking and we're, not holding things in. And she's going to like drag things out when she's like 16 and
Come back and blame us for something.
yeah.
So yeah,
Somehow I don't think so. It sounds like you guys handled it beautifully.
Yeah.
Really amazing what you guys did.
well, thank you. It's we just hope we can help more kids and
Yep.
have more success.
Just be voices.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for joining us.
Oh, we
today.
appreciate it. Again, this was free therapy for us. We really
Talking
You're
is
welcome.
We're both talkers, so we can stay here all day.
How can people find out more about your business?
ParryandPearl.com. And it's got all the information on there. Also Instagram, Parry and Pearl.
yeah.
Think.
And
Is there another way? I'm trying to think. Facebook, of course.
And the foundation, how can people find
on social media, we're on Instagram and on Facebook, and we usually share a lot of the stories of the local kids on there and that we're working with, and that's we put it out there a lot of times when we're going to have a hero night, and even if you don't know the kid and you see we're having a hero night, come out just to show your support for that local family.
Eat in, order takeout.
Or take out, yeah.
You drop in a donation, and all the money goes directly to the families.
Yeah, we're all volunteers, so every bit of it that's donated to us goes to the kids. We do scholarships. We do the Hero Nights. We provide financial assistance for families, and we also work with another foundation called Rock Solid and building play sets in the backyards of kids who can't leave their home.
Yeah.
And because doctors will tell you, get your kids outside and play as much as possible. It's good for them. And so we build one a year, and it's really rewarding because they did it for us, and so we've paying it forward and doing it to other kids too, and building those play sets to give them a place to play while they're stuck in their house.
So I didn't even know that existed, so that's pretty
It's
cool.
it's an amazing foundation. They came knocking on our door, and we said, when we get on the other side, we're going to come out there and help put them together and sponsor them, and that's what we've been doing. We've done 3 now.
Yeah.
So it's been wonderful.
Well, thank you guys for sharing your story. You
Yeah.
know, it's not always easy, but you know, like you said, it's important to spread the word and raise awareness.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you for
Appreciate it,
having
guys.
us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
And this is Twin City Talk. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook. Thank you. The views and opinions portrayed by guests on this podcast are not necessarily those of the distributors and hosting companies. And if you love this podcast, that's great, but don't think about stealing it. Reach out to us and talk about the content because it is copyrighted.